Would you like to do a simple landscaping project in your yard and maybe looking for some ideas and some tips on how to get that done? Well, follow along in this video and I'll take you through the steps I followed to do this real simple landscaping job around this hummingbird feeder we recently installed in a previous video. It was a pretty easy project to do, and I think you'll enjoy it, and it'll get you on the road to doing your own landscaping in your yard. My name is Fred, and this is Make This Your Project. It's a beautiful day. Let's get started on it. We're in full landscaping mode here right now to put the finishing touches on a siding and deck project I completed a couple of years ago. And this one we're looking at in this video is probably the easiest one of the three. I marked the oval we decided on just using an old piece of garden hose. I laid an old hole between the center points on the bird bath and the hummingbird feeder post. I measured side to side from the hoe handle to make sure I had even spacing. I did the same thing at the post and the bird bath, side to side and end to end, to make sure everything looked balanced. I then sprayed a mark on the inside edge of the old garden hose with some white paint, so I could take the hose up later and lay some bricks down to get an idea where I needed to dig. With the hose out of the way, I could work my way around the oval with the bricks and see how I came out as far as spacing. And now the moment of truth, grab that last brick and see how it fits. See if I have too much space or not enough. And it dropped right in. It worked out great. Because I'd be making a slight mound with some additional dirt in here, eventually planting a bush and then putting some bark mulch on top, I needed to kill out the grass that was there. Now we wait for the Roundup to do its job, and once it does, we'll come back and finish this job out. In the meantime, I picked up another half a yard of black dirt at the local landscaping center with my trusty pickup. I'll be using quite a bit, and my stockpile by the woods is getting pretty low. It's been a few days, the grass has died out, and it's time for the fun to begin. Not terribly warm. We have temperatures expected early next week into the 90s when I'll be finishing this, so I want to get as much done as I can. What I'm doing right here is cutting an edge along the outside of the bricks with a pointed shovel. It rained a couple of days ago on the ground here. The clay is already starting to harden up. It's a little tough to start cutting with a flat edge shovel at this stage. With an edge cut, I can now switch to a flat point shovel and work my way around again to cut a little bit deeper into the ground. With the bricks still in place as a guide, I went back to the pointed shovel and started cutting underneath the bricks to start cutting that top layer of sod loose so I could dig in the trench for the bricks. Next, I had to remove the base for the bird bath that had been in there for many, many years and settled into the sod. That will be going back in about the same spot to support the bird bath after I build up the mound here on the oval. With the bricks moved off to the side, I now took the pointed shovel and started working my way along that painted line at a bit of a taper to dig in. I need that taper there going up to the bricks so that the bark has some place to lay without spilling out over the top. With the sod cut loose for the trench, I divided it into sections and I could start pulling those sections out of the trench, and I stacked them in the center, the first layer, to help use as fill, so it would reduce the amount of loose black dirt I'd have to throw on the top to get that mound I wanted. With the sod removed from the trench, I'm now going back to a flat edge shovel, and I'm cutting along the outside edge where the bricks will lay up against the sod to make a nice square cut. With that done, I can now take the narrow flat edge shovel and start working my way along the trench to make a flat surface to lay the bricks on and find the right depth for the bricks. I decided I needed to cut a little bit more taper along the inside edge to make a decent trough for the bark to lay in. With that out of the way, I went back to the narrow flat edge shovel and continued cutting along to make a flat surface for the bricks to lay on in the trench. Now started the trial and error process with the first brick to double check the depth, make sure I had a nice flat surface in there, and once I got through with this, I would have the depth to cut the rest of the trench figured out. With that first brick in place, it was time to start laying more bricks in place and double checking the depth, make sure they were all level and flat and sitting solidly on the base. The key is to get those first couple of bricks dialed in so you've got a good starting point, and then you can just start laying the other bricks and you've got a really good idea what you need for depth, and it starts to go pretty fast, pretty smoothly. Here it is Monday. I finished getting those bricks set in late in the day on Saturday, took Sunday off, and now it's time to get back at it. A nice cool morning here in Wisconsin. As I was cutting sod, I threw it all in the middle. I knew it would be too much. It would make the mound too high, so I'm pulling some sod back off from the top till I get a nice base established to put some loose black dirt on the top that I can level up and make a nice mound. What I had left, I moved around and adjusted a little bit with the garden rake till I got it where I wanted it. Now it was time to apply some of that nice, finely ground black fill dirt I got from the landscaping place and finish getting that mound built. With the rest of the mound built the way I wanted it, using the flat part of the rake to move the dirt around without tearing up the chunks of sod with the teeth on the rake, I made a nice flat area to put that bird bath base on. I needed to get that leveled up before I put the landscape fabric down. The base will sit on top of the landscape fabric eventually and will help hold that in place. As with everything else throughout the process, I kept double checking my distances to make sure everything was where it belonged. And of course I needed to check it with the level so that the bird bath sat flat and level. With that out of the way, I could finish leveling out the dirt with the back side of the rake and get ready to put the landscape fabric down. My fabric was just wide enough that I could cover the entire mound with just a slight overlap in the middle. Before I rolled it out all the way, I made sure that the base for the bird bath was sitting down properly. I'm using fabric to keep the weeds out and to allow moisture to get in when it rains to feed that bush that I'll be putting in. And you'll notice that I had taken the bricks out before I put the fabric down so I can lay the bricks on top of the fabric to keep weeds from coming up in between each brick. And the ground stayed pretty stable, but as I went along I had to periodically make a little bit of an adjustment to the dirt underneath, but for the most part they went right back in where they belong. When I got to the end, I was off by just a little bit and I had to adjust some of the bricks, and boom, I've got the last brick put in place. I took a utility knife and worked my way around the brick, cutting the excess fabric at the corners. We're putting a single ornamental bush in the center between the post and the bird bath, and it'll get to be quite a good size once it's mature. Got it positioned in place where I wanted it, just simply took the utility knife and worked my way around, making just a slightly bigger circle than the sides of the pot that it came in. I grabbed one of my trusty post hole diggers and went to work to dig a hole for the bush. Just had to cut through that first little bit of sod and then work my way down through that clay, which is never very easy. And of course, there was a great big root right through the center of it. I had to get the clippers to cut that because I couldn't get at it with the axe. I made the hole a little bit deeper than the pot itself. That allows me the opportunity to put some loose dirt in the hole and mix it in with some peat moss to give the roots a fighting chance to get started and take hold. I checked the depth of the hole to make sure I was at the right height. First with the pot still on the plant so I didn't damage the roots or knock any of the soil loose that it came with. Worked that off carefully and set the bush down into the hole so I could put dirt back around it. Final step was to dump some of the bark out on the mound and get it spread out evenly. I just use a garden rake to do that, to move it gently around the mound. Finally, I backfilled along the outside edge of the bricks with some fine black dirt and got that worked in nice and evenly. We'll wrap this up by giving this bush just a little bit of water to help it get rooted well. And with that, we have some landscaping done around our brand new hummingbird feeder and bird bath, sitting in a nice little display we can see from our deck. It was a fun little project to do. If you enjoyed this video and learned something from it, well, please click like and consider subscribing to our channel. Make this your project. I want to thank you again for watching. Enjoy your projects and take care.